I know a lot of families and parents who, like you said, are just scared to have these conversations with their kids. Um, Afraid to tell them, worry them, again, traumatize them. And I completely understand because it is scary and it can be traumatizing. But it's so much worse if you don't know. And it's so much harder when I see friends who come up to me and tell me that they've just realized about all the stuff that's been going on that they didn't know about. And they feel heartbroken and betrayed and lied to, and that they wish that people would come to them sooner and tell them sooner so that they could try and help. Even if they're kids, even if they can't drive or get on a bus or a train or a boat or do any big thing. They just want to know about it. They just want to try. They just want to be aware and involved in conversations.
I'm Dean Walker, and welcome to the Poetry of Predicament podcast, a podcast for people brave enough to face humanity's challenges and problems, and most importantly, our numerous predicaments. The Poetry of Predicament is a podcast meant to inspire us to bring forth grace, beauty, and connection with the web of life in the face of a predicament-laden world. Join us in this episode of Take My Hand, Conscious Parenting in a Time of Stolen Dreams, with another clear voice from this remarkable collapse-aware family: awareness, caring, and stewardship of the earth, with Leylin Grenfell Lee. All right, so welcome to another episode of the Poetry of Predicament podcast. And this is also secondarily part of a special focus, parallel set of interviews that we're calling Take My Hand, Conscious Parenting in a Time of Stolen Dreams. And so this will be showing up in both the podcast, which is Poetry of Predicament, is of course a YouTube channel, and it will be showing up on the Living Resilience website, where we offer a number of different programs, and this is one of them. And it's not just the interviews with parents and children in a world that is challenged with immense episodes of predicament and collapse and big problems. So it's not just interviews about those things for families that have something to say about them. It's also a place where we can put together articles, support media, which means other videos and other audio recordings, all meant to support people in having these kinds of conversations at home and in their own neighborhoods whenever possible. And so today is the third in a series with one particular family. And we've had the mother of the family, and now then one, and now two of the daughters in this family. And I've got to say that this has been one of the most extraordinary families to touch in with and to hear what's so for them. And I think you will also find that there is an extraordinary amount of what I might call resourcing in this family. It's clear that you all have an extraordinary amount of ability to articulate and have a pretty amazing grasp of what's going on in the world. And in a moment, we'll be checking in with Leylin to let us know what's her perspective in this family, in this neighborhood, in that particular part of the world, and what's of concern for her, what's of inspiration, just like we did with the other folks. And I'd actually like it if you wouldn't mind, Taliesin, if you wouldn't mind being the mother of this tribe, if you would remind us of your name and first daughter's name, and now the second daughter's name, and also just catch us up a little bit. How have you been since our couple of months ago when we did our first interview with you? And how has this series been for you? Have you seen or been surprised by anything in this series?
Thank you, Dean. I'm Taliesin. Taliesin Zahn Grenfell Lee is my full name. And my daughter is Leylin. Her Korean name is Ji-sun, and she is also a Grenfell Lee. And my older daughter, who was in the other interview, is Talinia. Her Korean name is Jin-sun, and also a Grenfell Lee. All of us are Grenfell Lee in this family.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated the interview, and Talinia's interview gave us a lot of ideas to think about with you and sit with over the past many weeks, as you've said, especially as Australia has just gone up in flames. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's been a very intense season of Advent and Christmas, imagining what it must be like for people whose entire world is up in flames at a time when we're talking about candles and light in the darkness and fire as this positive, beautiful thing. There's another side to that where it can become just all engulfing. And there's a enormous amount of grief and fear associated with these kinds of events. I think that the more they happen, the more people start to realize that our turn will be next. And I know where you live, there's been a lot of extreme weather events as well. It's not like there haven't been them here, but this is very dramatic, what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so for me, there's been many layers on which I've been processing my faith tradition of justice and healing in times that are very, very difficult. And also trying to step back from a human-centered approach and just look at our planet as it's trying to heal and say, okay, ultimately, what's going to come out of all of this? Nobody knows. And it might not be good for humanity, but it might be good for the planet as a whole. Is there a place where we can take our human ego out of it and try to look at the larger picture without our personal or even our human interests at the forefront? Mm-hmm. So I think about these things in practical ways, but also in psychological and philosophical ways as we kind of go through this season. My dad wrote a song about, there's a passage that we read, sometimes that we read after Christmas, about what's called the slaughter of the innocents. It's when Herod goes in and kills all of the children younger than 2 because he's so furious that Jesus and his parents have escaped. And there's a whole refugee side to this story, and there's a whole innocence and the slaughtering of the innocent side that I really feel like resonates with what's going on in the climate crisis, especially all the climate refugees. And when you think about all of the animal refugees and the animals that have been slaughtered by these fires, then singing that song this year that my dad wrote, a lot of people don't like to touch that story. They want to preach on it, they don't want to sing about it, they don't want to talk about it, and they don't want to think about it. And so I'm really grateful to him for giving us that song and giving me ways to process the unthinkable horror. That's really hard, and it takes a lot of courage, and that's why we need each other. So that was a kind of long answer, but it's been a very intense couple of weeks. And so that's really kind of where I've been with it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's good to get caught up, and I'm with you in. It's been an extraordinarily impactful time, and Australia is right up at the top of the heap of what's been so impactful. So thank you for sharing what's been so for you. Leilin, do you have anything to say out of perhaps out of what you just heard your mom say?
Can we just make sure you're accenting the first syllable, Leolin?
Leilin.
Yeah, Leolin. Yeah.
Leilin, thank you.
I think that for every winter that goes by, every Christmas solstice, it gets harder to see less and less snow. To look at my weather app and see that, oh, we might be getting snow on Tuesday, but Thursday it's going to be 60 degrees and sunny. And I just remember as a kid, I say that like I'm not a kid now, when I was much younger, and there would be so much snow, and it would last through the winter, and it would be February and past Valentine's Day, and I would look outside, and it would be dark from the sun setting early, and I would think to myself, I wish summer would come. I don't like all the snow. I don't want all this snow. I love snow and I love Christmas, but it's been too long. And I just wish it would all go away. And now I do the exact opposite. And I just wish that we would have snow for the winter. Then we could go skiing and sledding, and that the snow would come and stay and it wouldn't be in patches.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how I've been feeling.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's good to hear this first layer of what seems to be going on from your perspective. And I'm curious if you could say more about your mom was just talking about how for her she's been hearing stories about Australia and so on. I'm wondering if there are other elements of, if it's climate change or other concerns going on in the world that you're aware of and that are a concern for you as well. Is there anything else that you are aware of, like you're aware of the changes in the snowfall, for instance?
You can talk about your Christmas donation too, if you want.
I was going to.
Okay.
Because of the upcoming presidential election, then I've been thinking a lot lately about Bernie's campaign. And we donated some to his campaign for Christmas. And we usually pick something to donate to every year.
She means herself. To Leolin donated.
And this year.
And by we, you mean you and your sister, I think, right?
Well, you usually donate too.
No, I'm saying you did for Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I just didn't want him to think it was just like our family. It was something you chose.
And this year, I chose Bernie, like I said, and AOC.
Yep.
And that was really fun. And I've been thinking a lot about what's going to happen in terms of who will be elected for president or re-elected, and how we can work with that. I've been thinking a lot about um, polar bears and penguins and seals. We went to the New England Aquarium in Boston not too long ago, and you got to see all these really cute penguins swimming about and waddling on the rocks. You got to see Myrtle the turtle, who's been there for ages, and the big tank with all of the coral in it. And just hearing about how long it would take to grow that much coral reef out in the ocean is just so sad and heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
Because with the way things are going with the planet, I'm not sure we have that kind of time to correct it and see it live through.
You also gave a donation to Encore for Australia. Did you remember that?
I thought that was Talenia.
No, you both did. And then one of you did Bernie. Well, all right, maybe we got confused when we were rearranging the donations. I thought you had each given to a campaign, for a political campaign and for the crisis in Australia. But
Sure.
okay, great. I didn't mean to derail you. Keep going with your thoughts.
I've been thinking a lot about regenerative agriculture lately.
Mm-hmm.
And I recently just learned about biochar and how to make it and what it does, the chemistry of it. And I actually forgot to do this before we left for the holidays, but I want to talk to my school, my self-directed learning center, about biochar, to see if we can do it there, and have a class on it and educate more people. And actually, after this video, we're going to go watch a TED Talk with Eric Tosenmeyer. And I've been hearing a lot about him, and I got out his book from the library, so I'm going to start reading that.
You know, I'm curious. You mentioned a couple of things that you are inspired by, and so inspired by that you've actually contributed to. So one of them was Bernie's campaign, another one was AOC, and I'm curious if you could say a little bit about what is it that inspires you about them and about anybody else that that does inspire you, that does kind of nudge you in a good way. Can you describe a little bit about any part of any of these people that that has so inspired you that you want to contribute to their campaign? Or
Well, with Bernie, then I first started really hearing about him back for the election where Trump was elected. I don't remember what year that was. And I first really started hearing about him from you and from my Aunt Trelawney. And I remember she still has a Bernie bumper sticker on her car. And I saw it and I asked her what that was, and she explained to me all about what Bernie was doing. And I remember being really inspired that Bernie was having his campaign and movement based on donations from people and not from big corporations like NRA. And thinking that was what it was supposed to be like. That was what everyone should be doing.
Mm.
And even without hearing more about what he was working for, just about how he was doing it, I was already thinking that this was the kind of person we should have in office. And then not too long ago, a few months ago, we were parked, I think, outside of a library, and you showed us a video that you had seen on Facebook, I think. And it was of um, people on the news and interviews talking about all the things that Bernie was doing wrong. Um, and some people were saying completely untrue things. And then it just showed a clip of Bernie proving how they were wrong. You can correct me on this. I'm not sure if I'm explaining it right. And it was just so funny to see people talking, Bernie's totally racist against African American people and indigenous people, um, Spanish, and then him and his best friends who are of many different colors, um, and working to help their movements, um, and how he didn't really care about healthcare, which is one of his main things, um, and how he didn't care or didn't know about the climate. And then it showed him, I think, at a protest. And that was just very inspiring. With AOC, then I remember hearing a lot about her, seeing her on the news, on social media, and just about how cool and brave and smart and funny she was. And I remember seeing a post about how when she got elected, then they were going to take a nice photo of her. And they said, don't paint your nails a bright color because, it'll stand out in the photos. It won't look good. So do a base color if you need to, or do nude or something very pale. And in the picture, she painted her nails bright red.
All right.
Just, I forget who, but she said that she did it after another. And I watched a lot of videos of her on YouTube after that, with her and Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel. You talked about how she posted, I think, on Twitter that she just had a really long, hard day. So she was, I think, watching Netflix and had Ben and Jerry's ice cream.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people, I think, in power don't seem real.
Yeah.
They seem really fake and slimy. And she's just so honest and kind, and I think it was one of the first times I've ever watched anything really political on YouTube.
Yeah.
And that was very inspiring. I'm also constantly inspired by my family. Not only my immediate family, which I'm inspired by you guys a lot, but by my aunts and uncle, particularly two of them, Travana and Trevannion, have been building up a lot of survival skills, and they do a lot of wilderness classes and work. And I remember from whenever I was very young and they would come then we would always do something fun out in the yards or in the woods. We would carve wands, or we would climb trees together. And they came for my 14th birthday party last year. And for my birthday party, I wanted to have a big workshop with them for all of my friends, where we went out into the woods by our house and we gave everyone who came a knife and taught them how to use it. And we made bows and arrows, and we made spoons, and we had a fire made from a bow drill. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah, I do.
And that was really fun. And whenever they come, they're always doing something really cool and inspiring. And I feel like nowadays a lot of adults and kids really don't prioritize climate change and the issues around us. And if they do realize it and they are working against it, then they do that for an hour and then they stop and go back to their lives and forget that it exists. But whenever when I'm with my aunts and uncles, I always feel like that's their main goal, and they're always aware of it and they're always working. And it just really helped me to know that there are people that always keep working and never forget about the issues around us.
Yeah.
So they inspired me quite a bit.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you for that. You've really just gone straight into what I was hoping would be our next question. And that is, I'm curious if you could say anything about how your family and the kinds of relationships and the kinds of inspirations and so on that you were just talking about, how is that different than other kids that you know, other families that you know in your community? I'm curious, are many families like this, or are some very, very different from your family?
In my experience, most of our friends really do care about the issues, and they would like to help, they would like to do more, but it's just so daunting and scary, and they don't really know how to approach it. And so they're always very interested in what we're doing, and ask us a lot. I've been asked many times by my friends about what specifically I'm doing and what websites they should look at. And that's always really reassuring and wonderful when people ask me what they can do. I don't mean me personally, I just mean when people ask. Because I feel like often I'm the one, especially at my school, trying to press these issues on other people. And that people really don't understand just how pressing this matter is. And when I talk to people, especially teenagers, I find they're always telling me, look, I really understand this and I want to help. I just really don't know what I can do. I feel like all I can do is talk to my parents about this. but me as a person can't actually do anything. So lately, I've been working on a Instagram profile, um, an account where I'm going to have weekly videos and posts for teenagers specifically on what we can do without parents, and for a lot of us without transportation.
And so you're creating what sounds like a way for people to get answers to questions or to find out information. Is that the kind of thing that is involved with this profile?
It is, and it's going to be, I don't want it to, I want it to feel very personal. Um, so I've been working on whether it should be public or private account, because I want for people to be able to see my face and hear my voice in the video, and for me to tell people about what I'm doing specifically,
Mm-hmm.
and to help them feel that this is totally manageable, and that we can do it. And it's going to be something where I don't have all the answers. I'm going to be learning as I do it, and hopefully others will be learning with me. And mainly I'm doing this because I've looked at a lot of organizations' websites, and I've loved a lot of the work that people have been doing. But when you scroll down and you get to the part where people say what you can do to help, they give very vague answers. And usually the main thing that people say is help by donating to our cause. And I understand that a lot of people are doing this great work, but when you don't give me exact detailed information about what exactly your work is, I'm not very inclined to donate.
Right.
And I don't want to just donate. That's not what I want to do to help. I mean, of course, donating is great. That's just not all I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of what I'm going to be doing for this account is finding helpful information off different sites, and giving it and posting it on my account so that the people who are following don't have to go through the work of actually looking it up themselves, and they can just see it there.
Sounds like a pretty great project.
It's pretty great and pretty big.
Yeah. In your spare time. I'm curious if we could just shift gears for a moment. Every time I'm speaking with any combination of your family members, it is so inspiring, not only how articulate you all are, but it just seems like there's so much knowledge and there's so much curiosity built into your family somehow. It's extraordinary. And this may seem like an odd question, so I hope it will make sense. I'm wondering if you have anything to say about when you look at your mom and you imagine what it was like for her to grow up in the world that she grew up in. And then when you look out at the world that you're growing up in, I'm wondering if there are any notions, any ideas that come up for you about what's really different now. What is it to be a young person growing up into adulthood now that's significantly different from when your mom was growing up?
Well, first I'm going to talk about what I like to call the dark ages, which was where kids didn't have iPads and screens all the time,
Yeah.
and phones. And I remember you telling me and Talinia about this ad that you saw that said, have you ever checked your email on the beach? You will. And that's so true now, you do. But of course, then it was, what? How could you do that? It doesn't make sense. And just that little ad that is now famous in our family really helps me kind of sum up the screens. And I feel like part of it is really good and useful, that you can just say, hey Siri, tell me what this means. Tell me what 107 divided by 38 is. And you couldn't do that when you were younger. And it's very useful to have all that information at the touch of your finger, and how it makes learning about things a whole lot easier in a way. But it's also just very distracting, which is why a lot of kids just spend all day on their screens watching videos, playing video games. And now I'm seeing all these posts on my phone that say, for your generation, parents would say, come back inside, we have to do this, we have to do that. And then for my generation, go outside, go play, stop being inside. And it's just totally flipped. And it can help with these movements, to not feel so alone, to be able to chat with people online and to see what other people have been doing, and to, like I said, look at websites. I'm
curious if, I'm sorry?
But screens are just so addictive that I'm not sure if that helps.
Okay.
And also, when I was younger in kindergarten, one of the main topics that we would be talking about is, what do you want to be when you grow up? And in that age, the options were, I don't know, plumber, firefighter, teacher, gardener, work at a store, things that kids would play. So a lot of people would answer, princess or knight. And I remember thinking that I wanted to have a job, and then I wanted to get married and have kids. And then I learned about climate change. I'm not sure exactly when that was. I was young, probably not quite that young. But I remember it being something that was always in the back of my mind. And I would forget about it for a month, and then it would get brought back up again. And I could never really escape it. And it just kept getting more and more real as time went by. And now I'm looking at the world today and thinking, I don't know if when I get older I should have kids. I'm not sure if I want to bring more people into this world right now. I'm not sure that's fair to them. I'm not sure if it's safe. And from what I know, I'm not sure that was going on in your head when you were thinking about having kids. And so that's really the main thing that I think about with age difference.
And
Yeah.
what to grow up. That was
Yeah,
the other
the
part.
other one you get. Because now I'm not going to be a teacher or work at Stop and Shop. Really, I feel like to ensure my own survival and future, I have to work for climate change, and there's just no other option.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you have really you found yourself on a track that's quite clear that you want to keep making a contribution, keep moving forward with the concerns, with the issues that are most important to you, and then that's really what you've got in front of you, rather than a particular career plan or family plan. Or do you have both going on?
Well, a few months ago, I made us all in our immediate family sit down and have the climate talk. And we got to talking about what we wanted to do, what we should do, if there was, as I like to call it, the apocalypse. And some of the options were, have a homestead and try to live off grid. Some of them were just get completely involved in activism and hope for the best. And some of them were accept that everything might go entirely wrong and we may not be here in another 5 years, but to go on how things are right now and just be okay with that. And we didn't really get to finish our talk because it's longer than 3 hours, apparently. So we're going to finish that talk in a bit.
And I guess to kind of blend these last two questions together, I'm curious if you could just share whatever those differences that you imagine between when your mom grew up and when you're growing up. Are there things that seem somehow significantly different, like something that was present and an option and possible for your mom that is somehow less possible and not so much an option for you and the kids of your generation?
Well, now whenever I'm thinking of traveling for vacation, and I'm always thinking I would love to go to Europe on vacation. I would love to go to Alaska. I would love to go to Vancouver, but I'm not sure if we should fly. I'm not sure if we should drive across country. I'm not sure if we should take a long boat. I'm not sure if we should do anything besides drive in a electric solar powered car, which currently we do not have. And I know that whenever I eat meat, whenever I eat something that was wrapped in plastic, whenever I buy some clothing that wasn't made near me, I know that I'm leaving a carbon footprint on this earth, But the way that our system is set up, I feel like there's no avoiding it. And all you have to do is try to make sure that it's as little as possible. And that's something that I feel that you didn't worry about when you were a kid, in your generation. And like I said before, I can't really think about a future for me. I can't really just pick something as I felt like I could when I was younger. I mean, sure, at times when I just try to forget about climate change, then I think, oh, wouldn't it be fun to be an actor and be famous, and be a millionaire, or be a famous writer, and write books. But that's always imaginary for me. That's never an actual possibility that I'm considering. And I remember when I was younger, and I would be watching YouTube and see all these people go on talk shows and talk about their lives, and all the achievements that they've done. And usually who you see on there is actors, or in some kind of entertainment. And I would imagine myself going on those talk shows and having fun and playing the games, and being an actor. And now, when those thoughts drift into my head, I'm usually the CEO of some organization or company that has stopped climate change, and the world is good again. And that's kind of what I dream about at night.
Wow, thank you for that. I have one last question for you. It does seem remarkably obvious to me that you and your family have what I called at the beginning of this interview, resources, just significant amount of inner resources, each of you individually and then all of you together, that have you be able to be aware and articulate and also really sensitive to a lot of what's going on around you, even at a very large scale. And in my experience, that's uncommon. And I'm curious, if you had a far larger audience, let's just say you got to be on one of those larger talk shows that you were just talking about, rather than this little podcast. If you got a chance to really speak to a large, large audience about how to really turn and face into this world, which is exactly what it seems like you and your family are doing, I'm wondering if you would have any advice, any suggestions, where a person who comes from a family that doesn't have those resources, that isn't nearly as aware as you all are. And for some people, that can be a really scary place. The things that we've been talking about, you've been so relaxed in speaking about them. And for some people that are new to this conversation, it can be really scary to be thinking about and talking about the things that you've been talking about. I'm wondering if you had a large audience that was totally on your side, they just totally wanted to hear what you had to say. Is there anything that you could share with folks who are new to this conversation and maybe experiencing some fear and wondering, how do I do this? How can I move forward? How can I learn? How can I feel less fear as I look into this future? Would you have anything to say to that audience?
3 things mainly. The first is not being alone. Having my family helps me so much. Having my dog
Mm-hmm.
really helps, just to have a furry friend who loves you unconditionally. Um, and to be able to talk about it with people, especially in person, I find more than over text or email or on the phone. Having someone to cry with helps. Um, just being able to say to that person, I'm scared. I'm really scared. I don't know how to do this. I'm terrified. And just having someone who feels the same way can be incredibly helpful and reassuring. The second thing is that, like I said, I have a dog, and so I have to take her on walks. And when I go on walks, I listen to music. And I find that listening to music from movies or shows where the world is ending really helps me connect and not feel too overwhelmed. I particularly like World Falls by Adele. Skyfall by Adele.
Yep.
And Ashes from Deadpool too. Also, playing songs yourself can really help. Just putting your emotions into notes, I find, or notes literally as in a journal. That also helps. I have a journal. And the last thing I find, we're Methodist. And so often when I feel really upset and overwhelmed and scared, is I read the Bible and I read about the end of the world crises that were going on then, people literally thinking that they were all going to die and that was it. And then surviving really helps. And it doesn't have to be the Bible or anything religious. I've got tons of books that really help me with that. And that's part of the reason why I'm such a big bookworm, is that I find books really help me.
Yeah. Is that your ending point on the list?
Well, the last thing I'll say, I think I've said actually 6 things instead of 3, is that I love to be out in nature, and I'm outside a lot at my school. And to see the first leaf fall of autumn and everyone runs to catch it, and to see the ice crack over the stream when we all play in it in the late spring, to see birds get up every morning and sing and fly, see all the wild turkeys in our yard and the fox that trots across. I find that nature can really help, and that it's always there when you need it.
Beautiful. Well, I shouldn't be surprised, but I am that, it's just 3 out of 3 now, just jaw-droppingly great interviews where I find myself just so inspired and so really moved by what, especially this last piece that you were just sharing, Leyland. What I might call those things are self-regulation or co-regulation skills, like where we can, from time to time, the world shifts us in a way that we get dysregulated. We get out of that, that home state that we like to be in, where we have our wits about us and we feel like we might even have a little bit of a sense of humor and we have ability to relate with other people without being grumpy and so on. And these self-regulation and then co-regulation skills that you were just talking about, they're so simple, as many of them turn out to be, but they're so, each one just a little bit more heartwarming than the last. And that's been showing up in each of these interviews. And so I want to thank you so much for taking the time today to share with us your perspective and your experience of being in your remarkable family. And it's been so remarkable also to be with Tolinia and then Taliesin for you at the beginning. Excuse me. It's just been a remarkable series of interviews, and I predict that this will be a remarkable series for other parents and other folks, like we were just talking about, who aren't as well resourced, for them to get a sense of, wow, that's what is possible in one family, in one city, in one part of the world. That can be a really important reassurance for people who don't know what to be doing. They don't know how to regulate. They don't know how to be more aware without being freaked out about what's going on in the world. So for all 3 of you, and then collectively for your whole family, I just send out my thanks to you all for spending this time and these times in these interviews. I guess Taliesin and then Leyland, if either or both of you have any last things to just kind of wrap up this series that you'd like to say.
Thanks, Dean. Yes, and thanks again for this opportunity, which we've really enjoyed as well, and for all of this work that you're doing.
Yeah.
It's been really meaningful for us to be a part of it, and I look forward to looking at all of them. The thing I wanted to lift up, which I think has been really beautifully illustrated by both Tolinia and Leyland's interviews, is how powerful a resource our children can be for us as parents. And we're not doing ourselves or our children any favors by pretending that this crisis isn't happening, and by trying to protect them from that reality and being in denial. It's all around us. They're not stupid. They're just young. They know. And so I understand that sometimes people are nervous to have these conversations with their children because they don't know how. So I encourage people to try anyway, and to see kids as stronger than we think and as more creative than we might think, because we really do, I think, have an important job right now as parents, which is to have the courage to have these conversations with our kids about the reality of the situation and what we want to do together as a family about it. And I had been really talking about this, as you can see, for a long time, but Leyland was so determined that we as a family actually sit down and have this conversation, that that's what finally made it happen, that we sat down and we talked about, okay, what are the different scenarios that we could try to work toward as a family in terms of building resilience as a family. And my kids have a lot of really great ideas. Mm-hmm. So if you can just get over that hump of, I don't know how to talk about it, I don't know all the information, I don't want to freak them out, I don't want to damage my children or traumatize them, and just try to move through that to a place where you can just say, okay, we're all on the same team here, let's support each other, let's be angry together, let's be full of grief and sadness together, and then let's move to a place of resilience together. Then it can really bring a family closer and also help build the momentum to do that work, and of the other people around you, your friends, your neighbors, and your people in your church or whatever, to continue to do that, which can really help everybody feel less frightened and everybody feel more empowered. So anyway, so that's my closing thought, is just, I've really enjoyed listening to both Talinia and to Leyland, and I really feel like it illustrates what can happen if you can just take that step.
Yeah, beautifully said. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm just glad I measure up.
Mm-hmm. Do you have other closing thoughts?
I know a lot of families and parents who, like you said, are just scared to have these conversations with their kids. Afraid to tell them, worry them, again, traumatize them. And I completely understand, because it is scary and it can be traumatizing. But it's so much worse if you don't know. And it's so much harder when I see friends who come up to me and tell me that they've just realized about all the stuff that's been going on that they didn't know about. And they feel heartbroken and betrayed and lied to. And that they wish that people would come to them sooner and tell them sooner so that they could try and help. Even if they're kids, even if they can't drive or get on a bus or a train or a boat or do any big thing, they just want to know about it. They just want to try. They just want to be aware and involved in conversations. And so I think that's what I would tell parents, to not lie. And when kids ask them why there's less snow for Christmas than last year, not say that it was just this year and we'll get more next year. Just to tell the truth and get through it together.
You reminded me of a pretty well-known activist group that just has come up in this last year, Extinction Rebellion. And the number one item on their list of demands, if you will, wherever they are, whether it's in the UK or the US or anywhere else, first and foremost is their demand is to tell the truth. So I'm so pleased to have been able to connect with you all, with your family, with each of you individually, and to hear your articulation, your way of saying these important truths. It's so inspiring. I so appreciate you taking the time to do this. And I hope against hope this isn't our last chance to check in with one another. This particular project will be an ever-growing project for sure during this year of 2020. And it would be a real pleasure to check back in with you all, if you're up for it, to be able to see how the world is changing, how you're changing, and how your perspectives might be changing as well. But the last thing I would like to say is, again, thank you.
We'd love to stay connected. Sounds wonderful. I'm so glad for everything you're doing, and to connect with more people that are working on this is, I think, the best thing we can all do.
So I guess I'll just say bye for now. Thanks for watching another episode of the Poetry of Predicament podcast, produced by Dean Walker and the Living Resilience Alliance, www.livingresilience.net. Music today from Michael Hedges, as always, and also Port Blue Into the Sea. Also available on our website, www.livingresilience.net, is a wide array of articles, online learning series, arranging group and individual resilience coaching, and sign up for our every other Tuesday free support group that we call Safe Circle Calls.